My name is Björn Stenecker. I'm the CPO for Boliden, meaning that I'm responsible for the procurement organization at Boliden. Boliden is a public company in the metals and mining sector. We have 5 mining areas throughout Sweden, Ireland and Finland, and we have 5 smelters throughout Finland, Sweden and Norway.
Björn, I want to jump straight into your very long experience within the procurement area and ask you, there are research indicating, we often hear this when we read about procurement and procurement managers and CPOs, research indicate that procurement manage, control and influence about 60 to 65 of company spend, and it seems that most people in your area think that that's a too low figure. What's your opinion on that? What would be a suitable figure, if it's possible to even put a figure?
No, yeah, I mean, you put it right to the point there. It's not possible in my world. In some industries, let's say automotive, it's even higher and should be higher because that's the nature of that business. In this business, metals and mining, it's much lower. I would say spend controlled or even possible to control by procurement is roughly 40%, because that is the type of spend we have. It's a very labor intensive type of business, and therefore materials and services is much lower than other type of industries. So I would say roughly for Boliden it's 40% of the total revenue.
How about other research indicate that we are facing an even bigger externalization of businesses, that more and more of revenue is invested in external suppliers and even less and less in own employees, for instance. What's your view on that as a CPO, and if that would be the case, that is what we are facing more and more, what does that mean for a CPO, that up to perhaps like 70% of revenue is placed with external suppliers?
Yeah, I mean, for sure the trend is that you always have to consider to procure external services in a higher degree than have your own employees. However, I think that's it's a pendulum going back and forth, and actually at Boliden we actually insource a few areas right now, taking over what we have outsourced previously. So I think this is a changing material. I don't think it's a major trend. Of course, if we compare 10-20 years ago, there's a much better offering on the market what you can buy externally. So the potential is there, but not always it's a good business case.
And for a CPO, have you thought about what that means if you have to, I mean, if so much of business lies elsewhere, what does that mean in the role of a CPO managing that type spend and type relationships?
If I go into the specific role here at Boliden, for us safety and compliance to environment, health and safety is extremely important to us. So then it's critical that we make sure that the suppliers that we have working shoulder to shoulder with our own employees have the same high standards for safety, environment and health. That is one specific thing for our industry that might not exist for other types of industry, but that's an extremely important thing for us.
Having listened to many of your peers, so to speak, I find that quite often you hear measures and targets like lowering cost, for instance. At the same time, the business want to grow. Have you got any opinions on how procurement can make sure that procurement strategies are aligned with business strategies?
Yes, definitely, and I don't think they contradict each other. And I want to divide it into operational expenses, those type of running costs that we always want to minimize. And there, of course, when the business grows, those type of expenses grow as well, but we want them to not grow as fast as the top line, of course. But if we go into the capital expenditures, our investments, which is usually a very good business case, and they are need to happen, and there I think procurement is more to make sure we do healthy investments, we do it in a good way, but you need to have a more of a speed, not maybe control every SEK or every euro.
I'm asking also because you've probably heard it too, the discussion about procurement getting a seat at the management table and how to achieve that. What's your philosophy around that, achieving that more strategic role that really most managers want to take part in business development?
Yeah, I mean that has been discussed the last 20 years. How can procurement get a seat at the table? And to me, it's simple. You need to have the competence, and you need to have the power as a leader to be there. I mean, you can't write a process and say I need to be in this process or this forum. It's about people, and it's about what the reputation you have in the organization. And I think procurement, if you want to have a seat at the table in certain categories, then you need to have strong category managers there.
What do you think have happened in procurement for the past 10 years, if you look at both sort of direct and indirect spend? What has happened? Have you seen any development of any kind in general?
I mean, if we start with the indirect side, the offering on the market has exploded, of course. So many niche players, so many players consolidating, offering different types of services. So there, I mean, it's a fantastic offering, if you will, from a procurement perspective to choose from. On the direct side, I don't think too much have happened. On the offering side, it's traditional, but there the system support and the methodologies has changed a lot. So you have much better control and much better efficiency. You can do the same procurement activities with less people, for instance. I mean, the whole invoice to pay flow has undergone tremendous changes and efficiencies.
Invoice to pay, and that leads us forward to looking at the broader sort of end-to-end perspective on perhaps source to pay. What's your general opinion about making sure that what you do in one end is realized all the way, if you will, from source to pay?
For us here, it spells compliance. Compliance in many aspects. Compliance to our contracts when we issue purchase orders. Compliance to our purchase orders when we receive invoices. So for us, compliance is everything. That's our way to ensure that the savings we have brought to the table gets into the pocket, and also compliance to the suppliers that we have chosen from other perspectives like health and safety that I just mentioned. So compliance to our contracts, compliance to our purchase orders, compliance to our process, and to our preferred suppliers. So it spells compliance.
Compliance. Other research indicate that average contract compliance lies at about 30%. I mean, how do you make sure that you get that compliance?
Yeah, I mean, I will never be satisfied with the compliance level we have until we reach 100%, and we will never reach that, of course. But in several ways, I mean, you need to measure compliance in your process, in your systems. But I think it's extremely important to have a category view on compliance. You need to have one target or ambition level for compliance on your spend for R&D consultants versus your compliance on your spend on different chemicals, for instance. So I think you cannot just talk about compliance broadly. You need to talk about compliance and what that means in a specific category.
Can you elaborate on how you think one can measure that? I mean, metrics are always a very interesting topic. And
I like metrics.
You like, good. Can you share some of your favorite metrics, making sure that what you decide to do is actually achieved?
I mean, if we stick to compliance, I think it's a fantastic measurement, ensuring that the entire procurement organization have the same ambition level. The sourcing guys cannot just make a contract without implementing it. They have a responsibility to make sure that those contracts are used. On the operational procurement side, that team need to make sure that they call off from the right suppliers using the right contract, but also putting pressure on the sourcing side to make contracts that is possible to use and to comply with. So compliance as a broad KPI or metric for the entire organization, broken down into categories, but also to the different process segments. It's I hope it will work well for us. We're just starting that journey.
Leading us up to what possible advice you can give to those perhaps frustrated CPOs wanting to get more influence, perhaps wanting to manage more spend, wanting to be part of the overall business strategies. Do you have any reflections and advice from your experience, what to do or what to think about in order to develop the role and the company procurement area further?
Oh, that's a broad question, very broad question. But I think at least a mistake that is easy to make is to create processes or metrics or approaches or even the organization at on the same way for all categories. I mean, we're always talking about category management. That is a buzzword that has been now for a couple of years. But I think it's extremely important to really think, what does that mean? For this specific category, how should we measure? How should we organize? What is the call of channels? What is the supplier structure we need to have? And then don't try to do that for IM&S or marketing or IT or chemicals or direct material. You need to differentiate. Maybe not for every category, but at least group the categories and have different approaches to them. Don't try to make one organization to fit everything.
Thank you, Björn, and good luck with your future work.
Thank you.